Hello everybody and welcome to the YouTube character profile re-upload for Lloyd Mullaney. This was taken originally from episode 6 of Conversation Street. I can't believe we did it quite so early.
I thought it was 7.
No, it was 6.
Okay.
It's definitely 6. I was having a look, I wanted to put Lloyd up this week because of the racism storyline that's just kicking off in normal Coronation Street at the moment, and it made me think back to the last time Corrie attempted something like this, or one of the last times, I can't remember, with the infamous Play the White Man story, which was memorable for all the wrong reasons. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But yeah, I was surprised quite how early in the life of the podcast we talked about Lloyd. And this was back in the day when our podcast episodes were, 30, 40 minutes max? So the character profiles themselves, barely anything. So what we'll play for in a minute is 8-9 minutes maybe of what we had to say about Lloyd up to what he was doing in 2012, and then we'll come back at the end of the profile and have a little bit of a chat about what he did in the 3 years, I think, between then and his departure from the programme.
Yeah, and I can't pronounce his surname.
Yes, look out for Gemma not being able to pronounce his surname at the beginning of this, but also me confirming that her mispronunciation was right.
Yeah, so we've learned. We've learned in the last...
We have. If there's
8
one
years.
thing that this podcast has taught us in the last 8 years, it's how to pronounce Lloyd's surname. I can't pronounce everything, but I know how to say Mullaney now.
Okay.
Here it is.
Now it's time for our character profile, and this week we're doing Lloyd Mullaney.
Played
Is that how
by...
you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Played by Craig Charles, and the character was born in 1964. He lives in 15A Victoria Street, which is above streetcars. His first appearance was the 20th of June 2005, and he's sort of been in it on and off from
for various reasons.
Yeah, from 2005 to 2006, and then 2007 to 2011, and then from this year till the present. And he's been in 650 episodes.
Yeah, so the thing that I seem to have found about his character is the character was created for Craig Charles rather than let's make a character, who can we get to play it. It's almost like ITV got Craig Charles and what character can we make from him. I remember when he came into it and I was very, very happy because I was a big Red Dwarf fan, so having Craig Charles, who plays Lister in Red Dwarf, on Coronation Street, kind of a match made in heaven for me.
Would you say that he's quite a beloved... I wouldn't say he was a beloved actor because he's only really known for Red Dwarf.
That's
but
it, yeah.
He's sort of an icon of British comedy, isn't he, really?
Yeah. And everyone likes him as a character. He's really popular, isn't he? Nobody's got a bad thing to say about Lloyd, really. Generally, in Corrie
He's just a nice
fandom,
bloke,
he's just
isn't
a
he?
nice bloke. He's the kind of person that anyone would want to be mates with, I think. Good for a laugh.
Yeah,
He's
been... he hasn't really been the star of a storyline for most of his duration on the street.
No, he hasn't. He started off back in 2005 when he bought into streetcars for £15,000. His girlfriend had lent him the money, and he wanted to split up with her, but he kind of couldn't, so he ended up having to sleep with her, basically, to pay back for the money that she lent him. And that was a bit of a problem because he was kind of dating Kelly Crabtree at the same time. She found out that this was going on, put a bottle of laxative in his beer. Funny scene. But anyway, he then borrowed 10k from the bank, and they were an item for a little while.
I didn't know you could just borrow money from a bank. I thought you had to borrow off shady loan sharks or give birth to a child that's not your own to make money on Coronation Street.
Oh, there you go.
Or just get a job for a trial period.
In 2006, Lloyd and Kelly moved in together, and that's when Becky arrived on the scene, your favourite character.
Yay,
she was
Becky.
really clingy at the start. She came in because she'd known Kelly, and she moved in with them. Bit of a third wheel in the relationship, and in the end Lloyd suggested that she moved out. Becky didn't like that, and then she ended up planting some stolen goods on Kelly. That got her into trouble, and Lloyd told Kelly that she's better off pleading guilty to everyone and saying that she did steal it. Kelly did that, and so she got off lightly, but because Lloyd was going along with the fact that she was the one that stole this stuff, she ended up dumping him, slept with Steve, and that caused Steve and Lloyd to have one of their many fallouts, and that's when Craig Charles left the programme for the first time. And he left because the actor was suspended for drug abuse, and everyone was totally shocked. Do you remember when that came
Yeah, it
out
was
in the
actually
news?
very shocking that happened.
Yeah, I was gutted because I thought he was great having this childhood icon of mine on Coronation Street, but he was suspended, but everybody said, "Oh, I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back," because he was such a lovable character. So it wasn't long, 2007, he was back, and he was given a 3-year contract then from ITV. He started dating Jodie Morton, but then ended up dumping her because she had a bit too much baggage with all the many brothers and sisters that she had. He then, and he was. Do you remember Finley, who he got on with, the little Morton, Teresa? Morton tried to con Lloyd into thinking that
I remember that now.
that he was his son. So
Poor
already,
old Lloyd.
it's almost a bit of an echo of the past. What's going on now with him suddenly realizing he's got this son? But anyway, he finds out that he wasn't actually his father. Gets rid of Teresa, starts dating Liz. And that was another. We'd mentioned that scene a few weeks ago where Liz had to hide behind Lloyd's sofa. That was
so
good.
that Steve didn't find them, because obviously Liz is Steve's mum, and it was a bit awkward.
Yeah, but he's got a thing for an older woman. This Lloyd, hasn't he? Liz,
well,
Teresa.
Mandy looks about the same age.
Mandy's about his age. She must be. He split up with Liz. I think he was a bit embarrassed by the big age gap there, and it wasn't very easy going out with his best mate's mum. And eventually, for whatever reason, he's ended up going out with Teresa. I think she'd been kicked out of her home, and he was on the rebound from Liz, and she needed someone to cry on, so they ended up together. That obviously didn't last. And then along came Cheryl, which was Cheryl, sorry, and that was his biggest storyline. For me, that's his most memorable storyline.
He basically rescues Cheryl from her abusive husband, Chris.
Oh, he was such.
He was beating her up, and she had to get out of that situation, obviously, and she had a son, Russ. And during the tram crash,
he rescued Russ. Number 13 was on fire, and the Peacock children were in there, and he went in and rescued them. He's quite brave. He rescued Becky from a fire once, I think a couple of times.
On the street, you have to be able to rescue people from burning buildings at a moment's notice.
That they still haven't had that. Those fire alarms go faulty and set fire.
That we've seen. I think we've.
There you go. There's another rescue for the future, maybe for Lloyd. Anyway, Chris is diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he tricked Cheryl into thinking it was worse than it actually was. He's saying, "Oh, I'm dying. The treatment's not working," and so she goes back to him. I was so mad at him when the storyline was going on.
He was sneaky.
Because Cheryl was great for Lloyd. They were a really good couple.
I think she was a bit too young for him.
Oh, maybe, but it was nice to see him happy after going through all these unsuccessful
relationships.
relationships.
It was an uneasy relationship to watch, because you knew that something was going to happen, because she was out of his league. I thought. It sounds horrible to say, but I can see him settling down with Mandy. Mandy seems like a really nice maternal. That's what he needs. A maternal, nice, nesty kind of homemaker woman who will cook him a nice dinner. You know what I mean? That's what he needs. Not somebody who's like sexy ex-stripper with an abusive husband kind of.
So anyway, she goes off with Chris again, and then before long, Lloyd's trying to snog Stella. He's been through quite a few women on the street in a short time. Carl finds out, and Lloyd is kind of disgraced and leaves for the street, and that's when Craig Charles went to film the new series of Red Dwarf. Came back this year, and there's a bit of a funny storyline where he'd set up a rival cab firm with Steve, and then that was just a way of getting them back together again.
It was called Fair Ladies, which was an excellent name for a cab.
Excellent Corrie pun. They're good at punny business names. But I think Lloyd is great. He's I want him to stay in it a long time. I really want him to have a family. I want him to move in onto the street, because I think he could be an iconic Corrie character if they gave him the chance. He's not the best actor.
I love Craig Charles.
Yeah.
I like him in the programme, but I can't say that I've ever really cared about Lloyd.
It's because they haven't given him the opportunity. He's just been on the sidelines all the time. He's like there as the straight man for Steve's idiotic schemes, because Lloyd's obviously the better businessman out of the two.
I think he just always seems, in my mind, if I picture him, he always has a pained expression on his face for various reasons, which I'm sure are justified. But at the same time, he doesn't. When I see him, I don't go, "Oh, good."
I do.
It's a Lloyd scene.
I do.
No, I don't.
Yeah. But anyway, really looking forward to seeing how this other storyline turns out.
Yeah, I hope it.
I hope it spreads into other characters in the street, because he's only ever really has scenes with Steve in. He doesn't seem to be a part of the community. So I hope that something happens that he's involved with.
Well, didn't he start having a friendship with somebody he went off and played darts with?
Paul.
Yeah,
so he could get in there.
And there we go.
Very brief.
Yeah, that was a potted, brief, short history of Lloyd Mullaney up until 2012, and a very abrupt cut-off as well. Like, I think back in the time when we had a certain amount of web space that we could only use each month, particularly in the first few months when we were just trying out the podcast. It's like, right, these character profiles can only be this amount of time. Wherever we are, we'll just stop talking and move on to the next thing. So we last left it talking about Paul, which is quite interesting. We were saying that we want Lloyd to have more friends other than Steve in the street. And how about this new guy, Paul, that he's just going to play darts with? How about that guy, Paul, Gemma?
Well, it didn't turn out too well, did it? He was Eileen's boyfriend, right?
Yes, he was Eileen's boyfriend. Yeah, he was the guy who was going out with the woman who had early onset Alzheimer's.
No, he was married to her.
He was married to her whilst he was going out with
dating Eileen, and he was just like, look, Eileen, you're my girlfriend now. Can you babysit my wife for me?
Yeah. So Lloyd made friends with Paul, but it all turned sour a little bit in, when was it? Was
first of all, 2012, he met up with Mandy Kamara.
I was going to talk about that first.
I know, but discovered that he had a daughter, Jenna.
Yes.
And Jenna ends up dating Sophie.
Yeah. Well, I think...
Then the next year, this is when we get the racist comment from Paul when they were playing darts together or something, and I can't even remember what play the white man is supposed to mean anymore, but it was
It's like, come on, mate, be fair.
Oh, okay.
That was a bullseye, or it would have been if I didn't have a hiccup beforehand. I don't know.
It was just baffling.
It was a bad attempt at a issues-based story related to racism.
If you want to pick a racist phrase or insult, there's loads of them.
There are. I think it was Coronation Street trying to say, "Oh, we want to do a show program about being racist," but without really using.
We don't want to offend people.
No, and it came across as being
that nobody's heard of before.
Yeah, it came across as just being a bit baffling. They were early days, I suppose, in this Bailey storyline with Don at the moment, but so far it seems to be a little less heavy-handed. But yeah, so we'd said in that
this
last...
whole thing was very twee, wasn't it?
Mm.
Because Paul gets accused of being racist by Lloyd. He didn't think he was being racist. He was like, oh, it's just a saying that everyone knows. And Lloyd's like, okay, you can't see why... you're a racist.
It was about casual racism, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then... So he gets fired from being a racist woman. But then he rescues Lloyd from racists later. So
I know, it was very, very twee, wasn't it?
There are different types of racists, and all of them are different.
Be alert.
Be alert for racists.
It didn't work, and Paul wasn't that strong a character either, to be fair.
I felt sorry for Paul. He got thrown under the bus, I think, a bit. By
he really did,
and
I think that might be the end of Paul's time on the street there or thereabouts. Anyway, Eileen dumped him, and that was the end of that. But at least this and the Mandy story, which you touched on just then, did answer our desires that we expressed in the character profile for Lloyd to get involved with some people outside of streetcars, and B, for him maybe to have a family. Although also the family aspect really, really didn't work with Mandy, did it?
They tried to give him an instant family.
They literally said it. They said, oh, and with Mandy and Lloyd discovers that he's got a daughter, Jenna. It's the old story of a soap star. A soap character realises that they fathered somebody, and now they're all grown up and they don't have to deal with the whole nappies and schooling thing. And it's an instant family. And just, landing somebody with that.
Jenna was a grown adult with her own career and everything.
Yeah, landing somebody with that just feels really... It felt at the time really forced.
Yeah,
and Jenna was a pretty dull character, I remember. Mandy was okay, but I mean she's not last that much of an impression. Yeah, she was she did some cooking in the Rovers for a bit, didn't she, Mandy?
Yeah. So anyway,
yeah, she leaves Lloyd in 2013. I think that proved that he is better as a lone wolf. Or maybe it's just who he pairs up with, because
the next year he starts dating Andrea, and we love Andrea.
We did love Andrea. That was a lot of people didn't. She's definitely not a universally loved character, is she? But we really, really took to her.
Yeah.
Played by Hayley Tomadden, who had just come from Emmerdale, hadn't she? She was doing some work on there.
She's just bubbly, like in real life, and in the show, she's just a big ball of energy and really always laughing. And I really liked her.
I thought they had great chemistry because Lloyd was also a big bundle of fun, wasn't he? He was cool, but he was fun, and he liked having a laugh, and they played off each other really, really well.
Yeah, they really did. But turns out that she had a secret because she was married and her husband was in Nigeria, Neil.
Yeah, is he working on, I thought he was working on the oil rigs or something like that. I can't remember, but Nigeria, apparently, according to what I looked up on Wikipedia this afternoon anyway, so they have oil rigs there.
Well, they break up, him and Andrea, but then Neil comes back and Lloyd can see that Andrea and Neil are not together anymore.
Yeah, because he started harassing them, didn't he?
He was hilarious. I don't know if it was intentional, but he's the one that sings menacingly from the radio.
He does. He sings "Hold Again" very menacingly to Andrew and Lloyd.
That was a classic. And then they end up on the roof.
He goes up to the Rovers' roof to protest and wanting to get Andrea back to try and convince her back to him. And then she climbs up there and ends up dangling from the roof. Again, a really Marmite Corrie scene. That lots of people point to that as being a real example of Stuart Blackburn ridiculousness. But I look back at all of that story with pretty fond memories.
A small dose of ridiculousness in Coronation Street.
I thought it was really quite fun, and I just absolutely adored Andrea and Lloyd. So yeah, they ended up staying together after that. He also had a heart attack that year. Interestingly, I think there must be something to do with working at Streetcars with Steve that gives you a heart attack, because hasn't Tim suffered the same affliction
I think it's just
recently?
Sitting around eating biscuits all day long. It's probably not really good for your health. And Steve and Eileen are used to it, obviously, but the other lot.
Yeah, well, both of those stories were other attempts at being issues based and like, get fit, Britain. Stop sitting on your sofa watching Coronation Street. Yeah. It's not our fault that it's on six times a week. You spend 3 hours watching this. Go and do a run.
Yeah.
Then in the end of 2014, that was when he left the show for a little bit to go on I'm a Celebrity, and that was really sad because that was when Craig Charles's brother died off screen. Didn't you remember? And he ended up leaving I'm a Celebrity partway through to come back from that.
Yeah, but he didn't die off screen though, did he? He died in real life.
He died in real life. So Craig came back early, and then he was back in Coronation Street early 2015, where there was a funny story with Steve getting married to Michelle, I think it was, and after a drunken stag night, Lloyd ends up on a Norwegian trawler sailing away across the sea and doesn't come back for a month, misses the wedding.
Stupid.
And that was almost the end of Lloyd, really. He came back just to leave again.
Yeah. He broke up with Andrea because she sold one of his records, but then it turns out she's pregnant, so they decide, just like Billy Walker, to go to Jersey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they had two exits because
that was weird.
They left on the live episode, but then they came back afterwards to say goodbye again.
Yeah, because the live episode was all about the spectacle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They had this big open-topped car, balloons.
And they were like waving and riding down the street going, bye guys!
Yeah.
And the next episode like,
we're back!
Do you know what we forgot to do? Like plan, pack, get passports.
Well, usually that doesn't make any difference to Coronation Street's characters.
They were trying out being realistic and nobody really liked it, so they're like, right, next time somebody's leaving, they're just going and never coming back.
Well, I think it was because I don't know whether I'm remembering this rightly or not. Lloyd didn't get a chance for a proper goodbye with Steve as part of the live episode. It didn't really fit the narrative, so they had to have a goodbye for him.
But they didn't normally bother.
No, but it was nice because they made a really good double act.
I really liked Andrew. I was really mad when Lloyd left because Andrea had to leave because there was really nothing to keep her in the street.
I mean, you say that, but I'm sure they could have found something.
All right, okay, I agree.
That's the reasoning they gave, and I remember at the time Hayley Tamadden being gutted that she had to leave. She obviously had to graciously do what she was told, but I think she would have liked to have stayed.
Red Dwarf
on the street. Yeah, well, Craig Charles wanted to do another series of Red Dwarf, and he ended up leaving after 946 episodes of Corrie, and he's done.
Seems like loads.
It does, and you know what? It's really weird. Lloyd occupies a space in my brain where I can't quite believe he was ever a character still, despite the fact that he was nearly in 1,000 episodes. And I think it's down to me really liking Craig Charles and him being a bit of a childhood idol of mine and growing up watching Red Dwarf, and I still never could really believe that he was in Coronation Street. And I think throughout my time watching the show, a big portion of my brain was saying, that's Lister off Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
So I forget that he exists, and if so, whenever I see the stats or the episode counts or the fact that he was in 10 years or whatever, I go, really?
Well, you're weird.
It feels Lloyd doesn't feel like a Coronation Street character. Is this just me?
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like he's a proper Coronation Street character, despite the fact that he was in 1,000 episodes.
Okay. Well,
Come back and prove me wrong, Lloyd.
come back and make it an even 1,000, I say.
Yeah, why not? I mean, he didn't leave in a coffin. It was a very positive end for the character. I loved that they had that big convertible exit. It was really kind of euphoric, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Even though they came back again. But it was a feel-good, positive ending. He wasn't like leaving with his tail between his legs. He hadn't been dumped or disgraced. Anything like that. He'd found his girlfriend was pregnant and he was moving to the Channel Islands to live a lovely new life with her. And then the next year we find out that she has given birth to a kid. So as far as we know, they're living it up down there, having a lovely old time. I'd really, really, really love them to come back, just because they were both fantastic. I've got nothing bad to say, really. I don't think about either of those characters, and I think of most characters on Coronation Street, even ones that I really, really love, I can say, yeah, I don't like this aspect of them, or that didn't work really well. And although the White Man story was a bit of a dud for Lloyd, that was more the story than the character. He was a really solid, great bloke, the sort of person that you'd want to be friends with, very reliable. He was heroic because he'd saved some people from burning buildings in his first stint as well, if you remember.
Yeah.
He was just a really, really top guy.
Top bloke.
I mean, I suppose the main stumbling block that could prevent him coming back was that as soon as he was gone from Coronation Street, Craig Charles ended up doing a couple of interviews where he spoke in less than glowing terms about his departure. And there was one particular interview in the Sunday Express where he'd said, I had to leave. For one thing, I wanted to do Red Dwarf, and the Corrie team had been very good at giving me opportunities to leave when I needed to in the past. Like when I think Dave did that first series on of Red Dwarf. Dave the TV show, yeah. Channel, sorry. They let him go, but Coronation Street weren't apparently particularly keen on that becoming a regular thing. But then also he was talking in the Sunday Express about wanting the programme having a different idea about what sort of storylines they wanted to give the character, because he and Simon Gregson, who plays Steve, got on really, really well, and they had a great laugh together. And he said that they kind of envisioned themselves as being the next Stan Ogden, Eddie Yates kind of pairing, like
hapless duo.
Yeah, going from
bumbling fools.
Yeah, from one escapade to another. And although we saw a bit of that with them, he was being given these long lost family stories, the racism story, the brain tumor story with Chris and Cheryl, and that's not what he really wanted. And Coronation Street had other ideas, and he was talking at the time about Corrie being a bit too dark, and I think by the time he left, that was around about the time. I think might have been just before Kate Oates came into it, but he just didn't like the way the direction that the programme was going, apparently. So I don't know whether, I haven't seen any recent interviews with him, whether he said he'd like to go in, but he's living it up DJing and everything at the moment, isn't he? So
he's having a time of his life.
Yeah, and Hayley Tamaddon has also gone on to do lots of great stuff. She's been on stage, she's done some other TV shows and everything. So
and prepared for the greatest role in life.
Motherhood,
yeah.
quite. So I don't think either of them have a burning desire or need to come back, but I wouldn't say it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'll be a very, very happy Coronation Street fan if it does, because I flipping love Lloyd.
Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed him being in the show.
Yeah. So that is, I think that'll do.
Yeah.
We filled in the gaps there on Lloyd, like 8 years later. And now you know everything there is to know about him. If you've got anything you want to tell us about Lloyd, do write in and let us know. We'll be back on the weekend for our latest podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, we're at conversationstreet@gmail.com, but you can also find us on Twitter and Facebook and all that. And do give this YouTube video a like and a subscribe, because I believe that's what you're supposed to say in
Yeah.
YouTube videos. Cheers, everyone. Ta-ra for now.